1961, Rabbi Isaac Shicklin was the earliest rabbi to serve as a reader. During this year, the Civil War began, with thousands of Jews fighting over the Union and Confederate armies. 1865, Rabbi H. Bernstein served as a guest reader. The Civil War came to an end.
In 1871, the congregation moved to more permanent quarters on Nielsen Street. Furnishings for the new synagogue were sought through an appeal to American Jewry in the newspaper The Israelite. The Statue of Liberty was erected in New York Harbor. It subsequently became a symbol of welcome for millions of Jews and other immigrants who were to arrive over the next 40 years.
1899, after 40 years of existence, the temple finally named Rabbi Morris Waldman its first full-time rabbi at an annual salary of $300. 1902, the religious school was changed from Sunday to Saturday. The first 6 benches on each side of the sanctuary were auctioned off to the highest bidder. A building committee was appointed. The ladies played whist.
1908, the board voted to allow Rabbi Veld $5 a month toward commuting expenses because the railroad canceled the policy of half fare for ministers.
1911. The committee was formed to proceed with plans for a new temple. The Ladies' Auxiliary was commended for trying to make religious school more attractive by offering a prize for diligence. It was decided that high holy seats would continue to be assigned by lot.
1922. The big news for this year was that the fire escape was installed at the rear of the Sabbath school. Also, beginning in September, the Ladies' Auxiliary would be allowed to meet jointly with the men every 3 months. A children's service was instituted for Yom Kippur afternoon. 1924. For the first time, a sliding scale was adopted for temple dues.
1933. During the depth of the Depression, Sisterhood members worked for emergency relief at the local YMCA. They contributed clothing and diapers to New Brunswick's needy. The Book of Life was established to memorialize the names of members or their relatives. Hitler came to power in January of this year, and official anti-Semitic activity began in earnest. Jews were initially expelled from public places. Jewish business establishments were officially boycotted. The reign of terror and dehumanization of the Jews became official government policy.
1945. In May, the war in Europe ended, and in September, the Japanese surrendered. Unfortunately, members of several Anshe Emet families were among the 11,000 American Jewish servicemen killed in the war. The State of Israel was created in May, and the British withdrew from Palestine. The Arab-Israeli War began immediately with an invasion by 7 Arab states.
1950. The congregation had 283 members and 217 children in the religious school and the Hebrew school. Facilities were becoming inadequate. The suggestion was therefore made that an addition be added to the temple. The congregation had grown so large that it was decided to hold double evening and morning services for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. 1963. The vestry room was named Keller Hall in honor of Rabbi Keller. John F. Kennedy was assassinated on November 23, 1963.
1966. Standards for bar mitzvah were established requiring a minimum of 2 years of religious school. Bat mitzvah was to be available to daughters of members at the parents' request. 1970. In honor of the 110th anniversary of the temple, communication was initiated with the Alten Shul in Prague in hope that we could offer them some assistance or sponsor someone from their congregation to come to this country. Anshe Emet had received its first Torah from the Alten Shul.
1974. The most significant event of this year was that Rabbi Bennett Miller was appointed assistant rabbi. 1975. After 6 years of continuing research and soul-searching, the Long Range Planning Committee recommended that we remain in New Brunswick, that the house on the adjacent property be torn down, and that we build an addition onto the existing temple building. The Union Prayer Book, Gates of Prayer, was published and adopted by the congregation. A special ceremony was held to light a public Hanukkah menorah on the steps of the temple, and Joel Gordon was hired to serve as cantor. 1977. Rabbi Fields resigned to join a congregation in Toronto, Rabbi Bennett Miller became the senior rabbi of Anshe Emeth. 1978.
1980. After 80 years of active participation in almost every aspect of Anshe Emeth's activities, the sisterhood came to an end. 1982. This was a big year for theatrical activity. Temple members put on the 5th season, Saturday night at the Cohens, and a major production of Milk and Honey under the direction of Cantor Gordon. 1983, the social hall was completely redecorated with new wall and floor coverings, lightings, and curtains for the stage.
1988 or thereabouts. I'm Sydney Brandwine, and I'm going to tell you about getting the sanctuary air conditioned when I was president. The rest of the synagogue had already had AC, but not the domed sanctuary, because that was going to be a very complicated and expensive undertaking, which we finally tackled in 1988. We got an air conditioning engineer to come up with a plan, sent it out to bid, and then when we got the spectrum of bids, we knew we'd need a special assessment to pay for the job. So we had to have a special congregational meeting to explain our choice, vote on going ahead with the project, and then accept the special assessment to pay for this huge and expensive job. And that took a couple of hours, but we did it. Now the complaints are about sitting where the gusts of cool air always find us. But it's easier to put on a sweater or a shawl than to sit fanning ourselves on a 95+ degree day. And I'm sure no one's sorry now, with global warming and actuality, that we have air conditioning in our beautiful sanctuary. And no one remembers when we sat sweating and grumbling and fanning ourselves.
One of the summers when congregants read Torah and gave a devar was, I believe, in 1993. My wife, Sandy Heckelman, who's also Geneve's mother, was reading Torah, and she always did a very thorough and very consequential job of it. And at one time, Norman Reitman happened to be at services, and he came up to her afterwards and could not get over the eloquence and the thoughtfulness that went into that. And from then on, we knew that she was an important person in the synagogue.
1993, Rabbi Rebecca Dubois, a hearing-impaired person, became the assistant rabbi. Special phone lines and sound systems were installed. 1996, the 5 stained glass windows by Ami Shamir were installed in Reitman Hall. 1997, it was announced that Neil Gold would become our new assistant rabbi. 1999, a new cantor was hired, Cantor Anna West Ott.
Yes, I remember a composer in residence concert when my daughter was about 10 years old and she was in the junior choir. My son, my younger son, who was still in high school at the time, came with me to the temple to be present for my daughter. We had no idea that it would turn out to be an experience that became part of the bedrock of our relationship and will always be. I think it might have been the final song. The congregation was standing up, and there was going to be some sort of recessional with the children, and they entered into this song, and Ephraim and I were in the song with my daughter and with each other in a space beyond time. It wasn't whatever it was on that Friday night. It was a forever moment that I think will stick with us also beyond time.
2002. It was confirmed that Anshe Emeth would remain in New Brunswick and not be moved to another location. 2003. Rabbi Kogan joined the temple staff. Rabbi Kogan was to be in charge of the Hebrew school.
Okay, so Rabbi Bennett Miller had led a temple trip to Eastern Europe. mainly Budapest, Vienna, and Prague. And of course, we went to quite a few areas of Jewish interest. And one of them, which is not peculiar to Judaism, but was a memorial for some destruction that the Nazis had wreaked in the town of Lidice as revenge for assassinating one of the Nazi leaders. They totally destroyed the town of Lidice in Czechoslovakia. And it was a very moving experience.
In 2003, I was a member of the largest B'nai Mitzvah class in the temple's history. We had 11 members, including 2 men, one who had been born Jewish and one who converted. Because there were so many of us, the ceremony took place over 2 consecutive Shabbat services. There have been many adult bat mitzvahs, probably since the 80s, all women who never had a bar or bat mitzvah at the appropriate age. Cantor Ott led us through, had the huge responsibility of leading us through this and getting us all in shape. Very few of us even knew Hebrew. It is very appropriate to honor her for this in her special retirement year. Thanks to her and to other members of the clergy, it was a very meaningful experience, and we all not only bonded together, we really learned a lot in that year.
January 2009. It was a cold winter day when over 200 Anshe Emet members came together to build the city of Jerusalem. First, we had a great lunch. We filled up Reitman Hall, and then we went into the social hall and built the city of Jerusalem, one Lego brick at a time. We were broken up into groups. Each group had perhaps a young child, and then an older member, and then a grandparent, and each of those groups worked together to build every single element of the entire city of Jerusalem. It was amazing what we were able to accomplish on that wonderful day.
In 2010, Ruthie Haas and I began the very first holiday gift drive for our clients at the Anshe Emet Community Development Corporation, the CDC. We were inspired by a giving tree we saw at St. A's Church in Kendall Park. We went with the committee at St. A's to hear the details of their very successful holiday gift program. We wanted to emulate the program and were looking for a unique Jewish way to ask for gifts. I remember we struggled with what it should look like. How would we collect the gifts? One idea was to create a giant dreidel. But then we heard about a kotel, the western wall that Barbara Sigmund had built for the religious school. It was the perfect idea, and our creativity began to flow. The wishing wall was born, with notes created for all of the wishes. We love the project because it's a way to have the entire Anshe Emet community support the CDC and help the neediest families in New Brunswick. It is so thrilling that this is now in its 9th year and thousands of gifts have been donated.
It was September 2012. Rabbi Baisley and Allison and their newborn son were staying at our house during Superstorm Sandy. We realized that we needed to send out a message to the congregation to let them know that Anshe Emet would be open for anyone who needed it, and that if anyone needed any help, to contact us. We went on to our One Call Now, and after about 20 tries of trying to keep the message down to a minute, we finally figured it out and was able to send a message out that was exactly 1 minute long. I'm happy to hear that after all these years, Rabbi Baisley has finally figured out how to keep that message at 1 minute.
Rabbi Morris Wallman, 1899 to 1903. Rabbi E. Fieldlander, 1903 to 1905. Rabbi Gustav N. Haussmann. 1905 to 1907, Rabbi Veld. 1907 to 1909.
Rabbi Solomon, 1909 to 1910. Rabbi Ludwig Stern, 1910 to 1913. Rabbi Ludwig Roeder, 1930 to 1920. Rabbi Dr. Jacob Goldstein, 1921.
Rabbi Herman Schatz, 1921 to 1925. Rabbi Dr. J. Sarachek, 1925 to 1927. Rabbi Arthur Maurice Hirschberg, 1927 to 1931. Rabbi Nathaniel Keller, 1931 to 1961.
Rabbi Jack D. Spiro, 1962 to 1967. Rabbi Harvey W. Field, 1968 to 1977. Rabbi Bennett Miller, 1977 to 2018. Rabbi Philip N. Baisley, 2018 to present.
Rabbi Miller has been a wonderful and tremendous guide for our congregation's journey for these past 44 years. We are who we are because of his dynamic, innovative, and empathic leadership. I am humbled to be picking up where he leaves off by continuing this holy journey with you as this temple's 16th senior rabbi. I see a very bright future for our temple, and I can't wait to share it with all of you. Thank you.
In gratitude and in expressing the overflowing wishes of our hearts, we join now in these words of thanksgiving and prayer. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'ehyanu v'kiyamanu v'hikyanu l'zman hazeh. We praise you, Adonai, our God, Holy Spirit of the universe, for giving us life, for sustaining our rabbis and our leaders and each of the precious members of our congregation, and for enabling us to reach this sacred moment of both continuity and new beginnings. And together we say, Amen.
Thank you.